What's up, chat? Welcome back. I changed some of the stuff on my overlay here, and it put my camera in front. Well, here I am, and I hope you guys are not afraid of being accused of being a communist and being blacklisted by society and losing your job and career prospects. Because today we're talking about the Red Terror in Warhammer 40,000. That was a McCarthyism joke for you, if you are a history person. What a fun time that was, chat. And here we are as well with a very similarly fun time in Warhammer 40,000. Because this unit's it's returned to Kill Team, a game that I'm sure someone plays. So that's good. And also, now it allows us to use new units in Warhammer 40,000. I do appreciate that Kill Team is a good onboarding mechanism for new units for Warhammer 40k. I think that's good. We need more side projects that are simply ways to release 40k models. I think that's fucking awesome. Yeah, so I'm back from Richmond Open chat. I just got back a couple of minutes ago, and recently, I guess, from driving back from that event. Hope you guys enjoyed the coverage over there. Day 1 had some fucking sick games. Day 2, I don't know. We had a very long and in-depth discussion about whether Deadly Demise was an appropriate mechanic for competitive Warhammer 40k. In my opinion, it's not. Get fucked. I think. What's up, Jets?
931 donated $5 through Super Chat. Orc Faction Preview. I'm glad they gave us a whole vertical slice.
Yeah, we'll probably talk about that tomorrow. I don't think we're going to talk about that today. I haven't read it yet, so... Honestly, it was a little obnoxious to immediately leave for event coverage and then have like 7 things drop while I was away. Okay, I mean, I can't cover it, so it is what it is. But you know, there we are. Anyway, chat. Let's go ahead and hop in over and talk about some Red Terror, because here's my opinion on this unit, chat. I think it's really good. Now, I do think that this kind of follows the trend of a lot of things recently that are like super strong that are being released, and whether or not that continues, we'll see. It does feel a little bit like some of the other data sheets that are releasing most recently that I mean, for the last like 8 months or whatever, that are kind of really pushed, and I don't know how to feel about that. To some extent, it does mean that the metagame does shift very gratuitously one way or another. Now, fortunately, there are a couple of stopgaps that we could talk about with this particular unit that I think are going to prevent it from being quite as ubiquitous as we're seeing other things like Apocryphally Victrix Honor Guard, Catan Shards, Defilers, these like meta destroyers that are releasing constantly, consistently over the course. And I don't think it's going to have maybe that level of meta impact, but I do think that it is something that will shift the needle of the Tyranid faction quite a bit. Oh, hello. Clicking on the datasheet apparently brings you to a different article. What the fuck? Why did you do that? Is that borked? Anyway, chat, whatever. We can do this the old-fashioned way. That looks terrible. What have I done? What have I done, chat? There we go. Here we go. All right. Let's talk about this datasheet, folks. When I first read it, I was like, this seems kind of whatever. It's like a big rabbitter. All right. But here's the thing, chat. And I'm sure everyone's picked up on this by now. This released like 12 hours ago, so I'm not exactly new to the first of the hot take here. But it has a couple of abilities that are fucking nuts, which is great. So first of all, unlike most of the other things that we've talked about, where we're like, well, let's wait and see what the points look like, chat. They have just given us the points in the article. They said this is going to be 130 points on release, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. When you compare it to a lot of other data sheets in Warhammer 40,000, you're like, okay, I'm contextualizing this as being like, I don't know, how much is like Kravik Morn He's like the same, right? He's like 120 or something. Let's talk about Kravik Morn real quick. Can we find that guy's data sheet? I think he's around the same points cost. Yeah, he's 120 points. So like we talk about Kravik Morn, right? And we're like, all right, Kravik Morn, he's cool. He's like 5 wounds guy. He's got Terminator profile. He's a little hard to kill. He hits really hard in melee. He punches. He has a flamer. He shoots good. It's pretty neat. That's cool. He attacks a bunch of times. He got 2 damage melee attacks. Sometimes he rerolls. Okay, he's like a little bit of a damage dealer. He can deep strike in on the table. And that seems pretty cool. And I would probably play him for 120 points. So for almost the same cost, we could talk about sort of the top line profile that we get from this thing. And obviously it doesn't join units. It doesn't join Terminator squads or whatever, or Obliterator squads. So it's a little bit different. It's an independent unit. However, I think in a lot of cases you're considering Kravik Morn as an independent operator, right? The difference here is that the Red Terror's effect on the table is basically infinitely replicable, which you cannot say for any of these other characters. So if we're looking at characters like this guy,
Beyond 6,931 donated $5 through Super Chat. Every net rapid ingress threat that gets added makes hyper-adapted Raveners even better.
I guess that is true, chat. That is true. You're going to be able to duplicate this thing alongside hyper-adapted Raveners as well. I guess also, like, because a lot of times you are like setting up for heroic interventions, essentially. Being able to like dual heroically intervene and stuff is going to be interesting too. But either way, being able to dual rapid ingress is huge. But like when we're talking about these characters, right? They're high impact, but they're, it's a guy, right? For the most part, you're going to drop on the table, you're going to blow something up, then you get attacked and you die. The Red Terror is like, nah, I ain't about that life. I would just live. So its top line profile is fine. It's not that exciting. It has no invulnerable save. It only has 9 wounds at toughness 8. So it's like, what's the equivalent? Like a Taurox. And you've never considered a Taurox to be particularly difficult to kill. Those guys die to like random side attacks sometimes. So real talk, Red Terror is not going to survive very long if your opponent decides to put all of their weapons into it. However, the important thing is, of course, its Subterranean Hunter ability, which at the end of each fight phase allows it to return into strategic reserves. This is a Twin Lance situation, chat. An effect that is incredibly strong already at the end of your opponent's fight phase, then allowing you to redeploy on your turn. This guy can do it after acting in your own turn. It's also, essentially those guys obviously are able to, for example, shoot and then, they can't do that anymore. That has been nerfed significantly. However, they were on release able to shoot and then run away behind a line of sight blocker. So they could do things, they could sort of replicate their impact on the game, but then they could also move to take objectives at the end of your opponent's turn. The Red Terror can not only pick up like a normal uppy downy unit and go into reserve, but also do so at the start of at the end of your own turn. This lets you do a couple of bizarre things. It lets you turn this guy into the Lion, where you open up a rapid ingress threat on the bottom of turn 1. So you start him on the table. He does deep strike if you want to, whatever. That's mostly for the strategic reserving. You start him on the table, bottom of or top of 1. At the end of your fight phase, you put him in reserve. Bottom of 1, you just ingress him. And here's the thing: he has this Serpentine Fiend ability, which lets him walk through walls. So you can move through terrain features. I like. Hopefully, this is like maybe future-proofing for 11th edition and how they're going to be wording these abilities, because it does like sort of specify exactly what you can do when you walk through terrain features, which is cool. However, here's the thing that it currently doesn't do, as we were talking about it in the context of 10th edition. It doesn't specify what type of move allows it to go through terrain features. Now, it's not a small model. To my knowledge, it's on like the big oval base, like the 120 mil oval base. So it's like the same size as a Moloch, essentially. So it's not going to like be piling in and consolidating through walls. But what it can do is charge through walls or advance through walls. So this thing, bottom of the first turn, can already be setting up to attack your opponent. Then, after it activates, assuming that it kills whatever its target was, it can just go back in reserve and do it again. And so as long as you have the command points to rapid ingress it consistently, it's like a Warp Talon unit. It's just going to continuously jump on the table, except unlike a Warp Talon unit, it doesn't require Dark Pacts, and it has 12 2-damage melee attacks. At strength 8, by the way. It is, it says strength 7 here, but, oh, excuse me. No, it is strength 7. Just kidding. I was thought for a second he was sit-ups, but he's not. He's just an epic hero. So at strength 7, so a lot of times he'll win infantry on 3s. So there is the chance, of course, that he does fail to kill whatever he's charging, and then he gets stuck in combat. And that would be very bad. So there's a little bit of a downside to this effect. However, here's the thing. You don't have to actually have fought with the Red Terror in order to do this. So you can create situations where, for example, you dual charge 2 units into your target, and the Red Terror, you activate first with a unit, so that your opponent has to pull out of engagement range of the Red Terror, which then allows it to replace. Unlike other effects like this, you don't have to be the one to have killed the enemy. You just have to not be in engagement range. So your opponent gets the choice. Are they going to pull out of melee with the Red Terror to prevent it from attacking, or are they going to let it continuously up down? So suddenly they have to position around this effect. There's also some interesting things that happen when you attack character units. So one of the big benefits that this thing has is it has 13 total melee attacks. One of them is its Gaping Maw, which is pretty spooky. First of all, when it attacks infantry, monster, or beast units, all unmodified wound rolls are critical. So, with specifically its Gaping Maw melee weapon, I should say. So, if it's attacking a toughness 4 enemy unit, which I think is going to be the primary target for this thing, every time it rolls a 3 or higher on the Gaping Maw attack, it automatically inflicts D3 plus 2 mortal wounds. You don't have to do anything else to do that. In addition to that, it has precision, so those mortal wounds can be assigned to a character. So you can do the thing where, based on your opponent's positioning, and you are going to get to sort of place around their positioning, because you're likely rapid ingressing this thing in, and then running it into their unit. If they are in a position where their character is towards the edge of the unit, and you are able to Gaping Maw it and inflict it a bunch of mortal wounds and kill it in one swing, assuming you can engage only the character and not the rest of the unit, you are automatically unengaged and then get to go back into strategic reserve. So the fact that the Gaping Maw attack gives you relatively consistent precision attacks or precision mortal wounds without really having to do very much gives it this opportunity to, in some cases, clear itself of engagement range if it's fighting into a character squad. That's because, of course, if you are hitting something with a precision weapon and you dictate that the wounds go onto the character and the character is destroyed, and that then means that the defending unit is unengaged from enemy models, they cannot be selected to fight. They have to have charged, so either they heroically intervened, or they have to be currently engaged. But if you don't engage them and then don't consolidate into them, you're actually unengaged entirely. So in a lot of cases, I mean, this thing's relatively fast. It's deep striking. It's going to be hopping around the battlefield. It's mobile. In a lot of cases, you're going to be able to utilize this ability even if you haven't killed whatever you charged with. And as I mentioned before, if you dual charge with 2 separate units, the Red Terror is going to be able to use this effect anyway to go into reserve at the end of your turn. That's like the top end. So the top end play pattern is this unit at the very beginning of the game goes into reserve, immediately rapid ingresses, clears the utility unit, and then goes back into reserve, right? Every turn for 5 turns of the game, and it's very difficult to stop. The bottom end is that it's just a burrower with a better reposition mechanic than Raveners for the same cost, or 5 points more, I guess. So it's, if you're playing like Subterranean Assault and you're gonna include burrowers in your army anyway, this thing it's not twin linked, but it does have like a similar attack volume and higher base strength than a Ravener unit. So it's like comparable to a Ravener unit. And it just has the ability to up down, both turns instead of just one. Now, fortunately, thank fucking God, they did say that this thing, this ability trick procs at the end of the fight phase, not at the end of the turn. Obviously, like, that's the standard wording, the standard verbiage for this effect that's going into reserve, the up-down effect. But if they'd fucked it up and said it happens end of turn, you could like perform actions with this guy and then go into reserve. Like you could run up and cleanse and then go into reserve. Fortunately, I was trying to find a situation where it could be relevant on scenario and still enter into reserve. And I don't know if there's one that exists. There might be like some weird corner case somewhere. However, I do think that fortunately it is basically only a combat threat. But at the worst case scenario, it's just a Ravener, right? It's just going to score you points and basically cost the same amount, but also has this effect where if your opponent has screening units or utility units, the Red Terror can consistently just kill them every turn and then go back into reserve. I think this datasheet's really good, and I think it's also really good for 130 points. I think that this points value feels, in my opinion, very low for what you get out of this unit. It is, in most cases, better than the equivalent utility you could get for the same cost. However, yeah, I mean, that's it. I don't know. I think it's just better. Like, are you going to take this or are you going to take 5 Raveners? You're going to take the thing whose ability works twice as much and who has a not dissimilar amount of damage. I guess it's like OC is worse, I guess, theoretically. I don't know. It can heal itself in some cases, which might be like pretty neat as well. Stuff like that. It can run through walls, even though it's a monster. So yeah, I think this datasheet's really good. Now here's the thing that sort of hampers the power level, and the reason that I don't think this is like quite as like sort of nuts as obviously it's not a Twin Lance, right? It's a single entity. It doesn't do a trillion damage, and it doesn't like. It has like a very similar level of effect, but it doesn't do the same amount of damage. It's only going to kill infantry units for the most part, or it's going to tickle a vehicle. It's not going to like blow up a Land Raider and then run behind a wall. Fortunately, for 160 points. However, very much like the Twin Lance, it is also an epic hero. So you only get one of them. And unlike the Twin Lance, it's not in Tau. It's in Tyranids, which are, let's put it candidly, chats, not a very good faction. In fact, a bad faction. And so the fact that they are getting a datasheet that's incredibly strong, that is as push as some of the recent datasheets we've been seeing, like Defilers and like the Twin Lance, is certainly not going to have the same level of impact as we were getting from some of these other sort of nuts, crazy releases. It definitely feels to me like it is an incredibly powerful datasheet, right? Especially in a lot of Tyranid builds where what they're looking for are ways to efficiently kill opposing utility units. This guy's going to be crazy. You go to a guardsman squad who's like, hanging out with 10 toughest 3 guys. He goes in and, you're playing subterranean assaults. You enflating emergence him so he gets sustained hits. You get 13 attacks, rerolling 1s, hitting on 2s, and then they wound on 2s with sustains. If they're saving on 5-ups base, you just kill the whole unit very relatively consistently. As long as you don't flub the wound roll, you go back into reserve and you call it a day. And you just like keep doing that every turn. That becomes incredibly spooky. Now, I do think that there's also some really interesting things that happen when you give this guy things like that inflating emergence. So it feels like to me, obviously, subterranean assault's like sort of the way where this has been designed for. It's like it is a burrower unit. It's explicitly built to go into subterranean assault, so being able to enfilade to gain sustained hits is kind of a big deal. The downside, of course, is that it prevents you from using sustained hits on your other targets. However, I do think that there's the cases where you're trying to buff the Red Terror's attacks are ones where you are not necessarily going in with your ranged units, for example. So, like, instead of exposing your Zoanthrope Brick or a Tyrannifex or something to try to kill a utility unit, you could just go in with this guy and just do it yourself. I guess the other thing to keep in mind is that you can't do that when you're Rapid Ingress, but if you are in Subterranean Assault, you should be able to 6-inch Deep Strike him and then hit the 6-inch charge. Now, in addition to that, it having sustained hits is also crazy good for this attack right here, because doubling this effect dramatically improves the consistency of its swings, right? Because the downside is that it is a Tyranid datasheet. It's like sort of mid-strength, mid-AP. and kind of infantry killing attacks. So being able to consistently deal devastating wounds to like T3 or T4 targets is very strong. If you can buff the volume of this weapon, and obviously it's an extra attack weapon, so you can't generate extra attacks for it, but you can generate extra hits through sustains, this gets very good. So there's also going to be some cases if, for example, we were playing like a invasion fleet where you can give it sustained hits and then improve its criticals. That could also be pretty strong. Not to mention the fact that it is a monster, so any monster synergies also apply to this guy as well. I'm just saying that basically any way that we can buff its own attacks is very good. And I do think as well that obviously it's not a little bit less so for subterranean assault, but any cases where you are planning to rapid ingress this guy in order to kill enemy units, you can rapid ingress him within 18 inches of your Neurotyrant, and when you do that, he gets the Synapse effect. He's not Synapse keyword himself, but in order to get the +1 strength to push him up to strength 8, so he wounds T4 infantry on 2s, you're going to be, that's within your power to do. And then the chances of 12 strength 8 to AP2 2 damage attacks killing what is likely to be 4 Space Marine bodies, if you want to kill a unit of 5, is relatively high. And so that will unengage him, and then he can go back into reserve. Theoretically, as long as you roll a 2 into a 3 on the Gaping Maw, you'll kill 1 model. And then your 12 additional attacks need to kill, 2s and 2s need to kill 4 more models. That's pretty reasonable in order to unengage the Red Terror and continue the rampage. So I think this data sheet's really good, chat. I definitely don't think it's going to be quite the same as some of the recent data sheets, but it does feel very similar, right? It feels like a very similar effect. Things that you can use end of your turn that you have a lot of agency over feels very strong. I don't know. I think that's about it. They'll make it Marnius Calgar the Blue Terror, of course. He thinks why is it not a Harvester? I mean, candidly, chat, who cares? It's fucking Assimilation Swarm, whatever. But also, I do think that it's the Harvester effects want to be sit on the table for a while and then sort of tank and spank, and I don't know if the Red Terror necessarily wants to do that. So I don't know if it works quite as well. It's no Yarick. That's true. It's also apparently 20 points less than Yarick and eats him in 1 attack if you let him. So, it is what it is. Assimilation 2. Yeah, what even is that? I've never heard of that. We did stream some Assimilation Swarm over the weekend, and it was cool. It won essentially without using any of its effects, I don't think. I don't think literally anything inside. Broodguard Impulse actually affected a couple of things. I think Scarbrand killed a Ripper Swarm and got +1 to wound against. But otherwise Assimilation Swarm, the detachment actually didn't do anything. All the units just died very cleanly, so nobody got to regenerate. But they did win, so there you go. You know what? It is what it is. Tyranid channel hype? I don't know, chat. Let's not go crazy. This would be strong in Marines. It would be strong in Marines. It might be stronger in Marines than it would be in Tyranids, because then you could oath the attack. If all you're doing is killing your opponents, your opponent goes up to cleanse, and you're just I need to kill that utility unit to trade and maintain value. You could oath it, then the Red Terror kills it really easily. But we can't do that in Tyranids, so we take what we can get, for sure. It can use the new Tank Shock for monsters. So here's the downside for that, chance, is that Tank Shock on a melee, primarily melee unit that's trying to kill infantry will likely backfire for you. Because what your opponent can do is, once you finish the charge, they can pull out of your engagement. And if you kill enough models in the target unit, they could potentially pull out of a range that you could pile back in. Now, with 2-inch extended engagement ranges in 11th edition, I don't know. Maybe it's fine. But it's definitely not, you're probably going to be, every once in a while, very negatively impacted by impact attacking on a unit that really needs to kill whatever it's charging. I guess, in fairness, if they pull out of engagement range and then you fail to go back in, you could just go back into reserve, I suppose. But the idea, I think, is that you are killing your target so that you remove pieces from them. And if the whole thing is that you ingress the Red Terror and charge and then impact attack and you're 2 CP down and then you don't kill the unit, you're going to be sad. But you just charge so you can pile in. You can't pile in, or I assume We're talking about 11th edition rules that I've never seen before. You can't pile in if you can't reach engagement range. So, if you kill all the models that you could engage, you don't fight. You don't do anything. It's the downside, the perennial downside of impact attacking. Sometimes you see it with like assault intercessors, right? Jump back intercessors come in, they go in, they hit the end guy on a formation, they kill 3 models with their impact attack. You pull the 3 guys that they were about to engage on a chain, and now you can't get to the rest, and your whole unit just stands there and does nothing. It happens quite often, and it sucks when it happens, but it is what it is. Obviously, like with the extra inch of engagement, maybe it's harder to do, and there's some rumors that coherency might change so that units have to be blobbed more. We'll see. Obviously, there's a lot of caveats in there, but I would. It is a little spooky sometimes doing impact mortals. AP2 strength 7 gets kind of nuked by AOZ, but again, you can make it strength 8. Right, and then your 2s into 2s onto a toughness 4 body, and you have to hand them 8 saves, which is like very reasonable. If you have any rerolls at all, it is highly likely you kill them, assuming that you convert the Maw attack. Which honestly, like you're playing Tyranids, you have 1 trillion command points because you have like Swarm Lord and Hive Tyrant over. And so like you should save a command point to reroll the wound roll on the Maw attack, right? So that you can get the devastating wound in. Because I think the devastating wound changes the math quite a bit. The whole idea is that we're killing 5 Space Marines a turn. That's the platonic ideal here. And I think it's the chances that it kills 5 Space Marines is pretty high. Especially if you like shoot one on the way in or something, you know? So yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I think they'll try to address the piling in thing in 11th edition. I don't know. That would be interesting. I don't know how they would do that, to be honest. If you're just like, if you made a successful charge, you're automatically eligible to target that unit with your attacks. That would be pretty wild. That would blow my mind. Things getting heroic 12 inches. I don't know what that means. So anyway, chat. That's the Red Terror. I think it seems good. I don't think it's going to burn down the whole game, but I would not be shocked to see it go up in points value marginally in the coming weeks. Of course, that depends on whether or not Games Workshop cares to actually adjust any of this stuff. I would also wonder if Subterranean Hunter is meant to say end of your fight or end of your opponent's fight phase instead of end of the fight phase. Obviously, that would nuke the whole unit. I think it would be unplayable at that point. But a version of Raveners that doesn't have Twin Linked and is a monster instead of infantry is significantly worse. However, I mean, we'll see. We'll see how it ends up being. These cases tend to end with this effect being changed to being locked to one player's turn or the other. And we'll see how that ends up working. So anyway, chat, that's all I have to talk about today. Bit of a short one, but I don't know. As a former and recovering Tyranid player, I'm excited for Tyranids to get a data sheet that's not an absolute joke, which is good. You know, it's a little different. It's nice to get a little variety in life every once in a while. Tyranids get a data sheet that's like cool and neat. But Tyranids have one good data sheet. You get one thing. Yeah, I don't know, but maybe it'll get nerfed just because it is a Tyranid unit and they're gonna squat Tyranids like next week anyway, right? Maybe 11th edition comes out and they'll be like, sorry that we released that Red Terror. It was meant to be only a kill team release. We did mean, in fact, to remove Tyranids from the game, and we forgot. Mea culpa. We accidentally made rules for it for 40k, but really what we were meaning to do is actually just delete the whole faction, which would have been better, I think. Anyway, chat, I think that's going to be it for me. Cheers, everybody. I will be live tomorrow. I think we'll be back to our regularly scheduled broadcasting, talking about some 11th edition stuff, on the morrow. So I'll see you over there. Thanks everyone for hanging out with me today. And, don't forget to check out my Richmond Open live streams if you are interested. We had an Astreus on the battlefield, which was interesting. May or may not have, been the source of the discussion about Deadly Demise and whether or not it's an appropriate mechanic for 40k. Obviously, since we're not changing data sheets, it's not going away anytime soon. Although, importantly, Red Terror, no Deadly Demise. That's pretty cool. Let's go. So finally, We're slowly removing that fucking shitty ass ability from the game. But I doubt it's going anywhere. But I do think that it is a bad rule. All right, chat. Cheers, everybody. What was the Estrellas matchup? Well, you can watch it. Fortunately, the power is in your hands to watch the video and check it out. So I'll see you. Do that. Cheers, everybody.